Raise your hand if one of the very first things you do in the morning and the very last thing you do at night is check social media. As mostly millennials in this room, we have grown up in a time where technology is a very integral part of our everyday lives, and while that has improved many aspects of it, and the overall idea of social media is to help keep us connected, the reality is that we have become so engrossed in the life behind the screen of our phones that we are actually more disconnected than ever. I am just as guilty as the next person of spending any spare moment that I have checking the most recent like or post. And I knew it was bad, but it wasn't until I began researching this topic for this speech that I became aware of just how much time we actually waste. Which is why today I'd like to tell you about how cutting back on the amount of time and energy that you put into social media every day allows you to live a more present and stress-free life. And while it is not an easy habit to break, I'll be giving you some tips and even an app that you can download that will help you learn to kind of let go. To begin, let's talk about just how much more life you have time to live when you aren't staring at your phone for half the day. According to socialmediatoday.com from the article, How Much Time Do People Spend on Social Media by Evan Asano, published on January 4th, 2017, teenagers spend up to 9 hours a day on social platforms, and 30% of all time spent online is now allocated to social media interaction. This graph is from that same article, and it shows all of the major social platforms, and then in an average person's lifespan, how much time is spent on social media, which adds up to 5 years and 4 months of your entire life. And then this is just some interesting things that you could do with all of that time that you spend looking at your phone. And to me, these numbers are profound, and as much as I wanted to tell myself that I could never spend that much of my life on my phone, I knew that wasn't entirely the truth. So at the beginning of this year, I made it my resolution to try and become more present in my everyday life, and I found that trying to cut back on social media was a really great place to start, and I was shocked with just how much more I noticed when I simply took the time to look up from my phone. If you do things like make the conscious decision to put your phone away during class or work, you might find out just how much more you retain. Or if you decide to strike up a conversation with the person next to you rather than scroll through Instagram or Facebook, you might find out just how much you all have in common. It becomes so much easier to notice and appreciate the smaller things in life when you aren't so consumed in your phone. Yet, as we trudge through the daily stresses that inevitably come along with being a human being, becoming more present might sometimes be the last thing that we want to do. But what if I told you that social media actually increases your stress? Scrolling your Twitter feed or Facebook feed, whatever it may be, has become reflexive for most of us. Need a break from homework? Scroll. Bored during the halftime of a game? Scroll. It has become the most mind-numbing way for us to escape the daily stresses and uninteresting moments that inevitably crowd our lives, except it doesn't actually decrease our stress. We feel anxious if there is something preventing us from tapping or swiping out of fear that we're missing out or losing touch. Yet when we get our social media fix, we still feel stressed out because we worry that we aren't as interesting as this person or didn't get as many likes as that person. It's a vicious cycle. Without it, we feel lost, but with it, we lose ourselves. According to the Huffington Post from the article Why Do Social Networks Increase Stress by John Dick, posted in 2015, social network users are 14% more likely than non-social network users to categorize their lives as at least somewhat stressful. This pie chart is from that article, and while there is not a drastic difference, there is definitely a noticeable difference between the people that categorize their lives as very stressful or somewhat stressful compared to the people that do not use any social platforms at all. However, standing up here and reading to you how stress-inducing social media can be is much easier than actually cutting back on how much you use it. A few months ago, I stumbled upon an article, also from the Huffington Post, titled, These Apps Help You Realize How Much Time You Waste on Your Phone, written by Katie Hall in November of 2014, where she reviewed apps that you can download onto your phone to help you track the amount of time you spend in a day on your phone. It seems counterintuitive, I know, but trust me, it works. She discusses an app called Moments, which costs $4.99 in the App Store, where it not only tracks how many minutes in a day you spend on your phone, but also how many times you unlock your phone. And then she also talks about a free version of that called Checky, which is the one that I opted to download. And for my own prideful reasons, I'm choosing not to disclose how much time that app revealed that I spent on my phone, but it was eye-opening to say the least. FOMO, or fear of missing out, is a very real thing, and I suffered from it badly, which I think is why it took me so long to really follow through with my resolution, but downloading that app was the final straw. So I deleted all of my social media apps off of my phone temporarily, just so that I wouldn't feel tempted, and I felt as lost as I thought I would. It took me about 2 weeks to stop subconsciously unlocking my phone and opening the weather app just to have something to look at. But it did get better. And eventually, I was finding myself wanting to engage in things that didn't involve technology at all. And I was getting my homework done faster, I was getting better grades, and I was meeting new people. My life became more fulfilled when I stopped filling it with so much comparison and jealousy of the way other people portray themselves online. In conclusion, I know some of you must think that I'm crazy. How could I bring to question something that our society holds such value and dependence upon? But I'm not saying that social media is a bad thing. All that I'm asking of you is to just download one of the apps that I mentioned, Moments or Checky, just so that you can know how much time you spend on a day-to-day basis. And then just take 1 week. Spend 7 days of your life actively avoiding social media just to see what happens. The first few days will inevitably be pretty rough, but then maybe, just maybe, you might start to feel a little less pressure to constantly like, scroll, and post. Then you might start to notice things you never did before, or even discover interests you never even knew you had. And then, most importantly, you'll hopefully be able to begin living a life that is no longer full of stressful comparisons. It's freeing, honestly, and I never would have believed it until I tried it myself. Social media does keep us connected, but if you're not careful, all it really does is consume us.